If you're an American, you were probably taught wrestling was the greatest martial art of all time. After all, it was the main event of WWE, and every action movie had at least one wrestling superstar. But when you think about it, wrestling is incomplete. It lacks the most important element of fighting, punching. And to be honest, it's kind of boring to watch. The most exciting fights in wrestling happen when they bring in someone like Stone Cold Steve Austin, the only guy allowed to stun The Rock. But there's a country where the fight never hits the mat. They don't need a wrestling ring or a heavyweight title because their martial art does what any other martial art QEN. Hit and submit. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the birthplace of the most effective martial art in the world, Brazil. Welcome to my channel. Today we're talking about the gentle art. In the early 90s, the world of fighting was changed forever. A new sport was born, called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which basically pit fighters from different martial arts against each other. It was a no-holds-barred, raw and bloody sport that made fans gasp at its brutality. And everyone expected the big, strong guys with knockout power to dominate the sport. I mean, who would want to voluntarily tap out? But something interesting happened instead. UFC 1, the first UFC event ever. There were two winners from the same family. Royce Gracie won the middleweight tournament, and his brother Helio Gracie won the heavyweight tournament. This was a huge shock to the world. These Gracie brothers didn't have big muscles. They were actually quite skinny. What they did have was an uncanny ability to take big, tough opponents down and submit them. That event marked the beginning of a new era in fighting. Over the next few years, hundreds of fighters from Brazil flooded into the UFC and started submitting the biggest, strongest opponents. The Japanese were known for their quickness, but Brazilians took it to a whole new level, thanks to their secret weapon, jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is a Japanese term that means gentle way. In Brazil, they call it jiu-jitsu, and it's become a way of life. Jiu-jitsu was created by the Gracie family over 100 years ago. Its founder, Carlos Gracie, was inspired by judo, but he wanted to improve it. He noticed that judo was very static, and that's why he added more dynamic elements to it, such as strikes, elbows, knees, and submissions. That's why judo is mostly focused on throws and locks, while jiu-jitsu is mostly focused on submissions. The reason for this is simple. Jiu-jitsu was created to empower the weaker person. If two people fight, the bigger and stronger person will always have an advantage. So jiu-jitsu focuses on techniques that allow smaller fighters to overcome larger, stronger opponents. The Gracie family were so confident in their creation that they started challenging anyone and everyone to fights. They challenged judokas, boxers, wrestlers, even karate experts. In the 1930s, they even challenged the godfather of judo himself, Jigoro Kano. Unfortunately, Kano died before the match could happen. But nonetheless, the message was received. Jiu-jitsu was quickly gaining popularity around the world. In the 60s and 70s, jiu-jitsu became hugely popular in Japan. People everywhere were learning jiu-jitsu, and it seemed like nothing could stop the Gracie family's dream of world domination. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Carlos and his brother Helio had a huge falling out over money. Eventually, Helio left the family and went to Rio de Janeiro to start his own academy. But he knew he couldn't use the Gracie name because of the ongoing conflict, so he named his style after the animal that inspired him, the black belt. Helio was known for his innovative spirit and love for teaching. Under his guidance, the school grew rapidly and produced some of the best fighters in the world. Helio's school wasn't just about fighting, though. It was also about philosophy and self-improvement. According to Helio, jiu-jitsu is not just a sport, it's a way of life. It teaches you discipline, respect, and humility. Most people think that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is just about submissions and fighting, but it's so much more than that. If you walk into a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class, you'll notice that the students are all hugging each other. It's because jiu-jitsu is all about mutual respect. Before and after training, you must bow to your opponent as a sign of respect. You must also be humble and never give up. No matter how tough the situation is, jiu-jitsu is not just a martial art, it's a lifestyle. And if you practice it, you must live by its principles, both on and off the mats. While Helio was busy changing the lives of his students, the world of fighting was going through a revolution. Strong guys were getting submitted left and right, and that's when it hit him. Judo wasn't enough anymore. To compete in these fights, he needed something more. something that would allow him to tap out the toughest opponents. That's when he invented a new style of fighting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like Judo, which focuses on throws and takedowns, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu focuses on submissions. In fact, more than half of all submissions in the UFC come from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's safe to say that without Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the UFC wouldn't exist today. The Gracie family were so proud of this new style of fighting that they started promoting their own events. They called it the Vale Tudo, which means anything goes in Portuguese. These events were a huge success and made the Gracie family rich and famous. But soon enough, other promotions came along and started offering bigger purses. That's when the Gracie family decided to take their talents to the UFC. Royce Gracie was the first to arrive, and his performance at UFC 1 was nothing short of legendary. Royce fought 3 times that night and submitted 3 opponents. It didn't matter how big or strong his opponents were. Royce had mastered the art of leveraging and technique over brute force. He was the David of fighting, the rock to his sling. The next Gracie to arrive was Romero Cavalcanti, who also had great success in the UFC, but it was Rickson Gracie who truly took the UFC by storm. When Rickson arrived in the UFC, he was a nobody from Brazil. But after submitting 4 opponents in a row, he became a household name. Soon enough, the media was calling him the most feared man in the world. When asked about his fighting style, Rickson said, "I don't fight, I submit. My goal is not to beat my opponent, but to make him quit," and that's exactly what he did. Rickson was unstoppable. For almost a decade, he was the top dog in the UFC, and everyone wanted a piece of him. But despite his success, Rickson remained humble and never forgot where he came from. He credited his father and brother for teaching him the art of leveraging and technique, and he always gave back to the community by teaching and mentoring young fighters. After Rickson's retirement, a new generation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters emerged. Names like Mario Sperry, Demian Maia, Rafael dos Anjos, and many others. They took the UFC by storm and became some of the most successful champions in history. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has now become the foundation of the ground game in MMA. Every fighter, no matter what style they practice, must have a solid ground game to compete in the UFC. That's why you see so many fighters from different backgrounds training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Some people might say that Jiu-Jitsu is a real martial art because it doesn't have a striking component. Those people are fools. Jiu-Jitsu is the most effective form of self-defense because it allows you to control the situation by taking the fight to the ground and finishing it quickly with submissions. The Gracie family created a style of fighting that changed the world forever. Their innovative spirit and love for teaching inspired millions of people to take up Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is more than just a martial art. It's a way of life. It teaches you discipline, respect, and humility. If you ever get the chance to learn Jiu-Jitsu, do it. It's an experience that will change your life forever. Thank you for watching.